welcome to another episode of the 905er podcast. My name is Roland Tanner.
I am Joel McLeod.
And we're going to do another Round Ontario or Round 905 roundup today. But before we do that, we just want to do a monthly shout out and thanks to all our Patreon supporters who so generously help us pay for what we're doing and are helping us grow this podcast and become a little bit better all the time. So thanks to Kyle Selms, Sean Vanderklees, Eric, Lynn Crosby, Shannon Gillies, Amar M, and Graham Crawford. Your support means the world to us. We really appreciate it so much. And we can't do this without you. So if anybody else would like to join the Patreon supporters, you can do that by going to patreon.com/the905er, all one word. You can support us with $1, with $5, whatever you want. And it really does make a big difference to us. So thanks so much for that. So, Joel, on to the news. And we have a few things. I mean, first of all, it's that pandemic again.
Just doesn't
COVID.
seem to go away.
No, just we're all sick to death of it. But there it is. And there's news very local to us.
Yes, apparently it appears that a neighborhood in Burlington, a neighborhood which postal code starting with L7S, and the neighborhoods that are encompassed in that are starting to see an increase in positive COVID-19 cases. It's just kind of a stark reminder that we are not out of this yet. I mean, vaccines are fantastic in Canada. We are the majority of us, I think, are doing our part in getting vaccine shots in our arms, helping those of us who need the help get to the clinics, get to a pharmacy, and get fully vaccinated, which is great and great to hear, and it's something that I think Canadians should be proud of. However, we aren't at that herd immunity level yet, and this is a stark reminder of that. The case and point here is that we need to be at 90% fully vaccinated, is what the Dr. Hamida Magani, the Halton Region Medical Officer of Health, is stating. We're just 10 or 20% short of that, it seems, and until we get to that 90%, that where we can chalk it up to herd immunization, where and by that we're talking people who legitimately can't get vaccinated due to they have a legitimate medical reason, not they read a meme on Facebook, a legitimate medical reason, or quite frankly, there's still a large chunk of kids under the age of 12 who are not vaccinated. They haven't been approved yet for one of the vaccines out there. And we have the new Delta variant emerging into the population, which for all accounts, youth are very much susceptible to it. Like you talk about, we're not out of it. We're almost there. We're almost there, but we're not quite. And it's one of those things that I look at it and say, we've asked politely. A lot of us did our duty. A lot of us had to struggle through the quagmire that it was to get a vaccine in this province, because that was not easy by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of us were relying on friends and family to refresh Vaccine Hunters your Twitter feed just to find pharmacies and whatnot and get on umpteen different wait lists. It was not an easy feat, but we did it. And we should pat ourselves on the back for that. Absolutely. But there's those of us who are not doing it. And this is not because of a medical reason. It's not because of an age thing. It's a willful ignorance and a willful neglect to do their public safety duty. And, we were talking, I'm a little past sympathy for these folks. I'm a little past patience. My patience is wearing thin. We've talked about this kind of not on the podcast, but off the record, is that, we have paid our dues during this pandemic. We have isolated, we have stayed indoors, we have cut ourselves off from friends and family. We have seen favorite businesses die off in some cases because of we weren't allowed to go into them. And a lot of us, I think, are saying enough is enough. we've paid our price. It is time for us to go back into the world and engage fully with the people and loved ones and the businesses and places that we want to visit.
Yeah, and I don't want that threatened because of people who for whatever reason, basically through misinformation and willful ignorance, too often it seems, are refusing to be vaccinated. It's like, you now are keeping, I don't mind staying at home when I'm doing it for everybody, but I'm not staying at home because you're an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to. I think the French have the right approach. I think the
Yes.
other places that have said, I think every business has a perfect right to say, if you cannot come inside, you cannot. You have the whole outside world. If you really want to not take it, I'm not going to force you to take it, but you cannot take part in these things unless you are vaccinated. That's the price. And your rights are not impinged then. I mean, I was getting grumpy the other day because, for some reason, my Twitter feed was full of, some of them were, I think they're both ex-conservative MPPs or PC MPPs who've had the whip taken away, who are frothing at the mouth about, the fact that there are going to be separate lines for people who are vaccinated and who aren't vaccinated at airports. And it's like, you're damn right. I don't want to be standing in a line with unvaccinated people.
Yep.
I'm
not doing this. I'm not paying into this. My personal choice, my personal freedom. It is your personal choice, and yeah, fair enough. However, the rest of us are entitled to know that we're safe around each other. We are entitled to know that when I walk into a restaurant and I want to dine there with my family, or to catch up with friends, that we're safe. That I'm not at risk of catching COVID in a restaurant. And Lord knows, I haven't heard of a single restaurant that says no, we don't want some kind of COVID proof vaccination. I mean, what brings down to the kind of the point that we were ultimately making was, it's time to introduce some kind of COVID card, some kind of COVID vaccination card that we can take out. So you want to go to a bar or a restaurant to catch up with friends. You've been cut off for a year, 2 years maybe, since the last time you saw friends or family. You say, it's time for us to catch up. So you go into a bar or restaurant to have a bite to eat and socialize and do what you normally should do. Yeah, maybe when you show up to the hostess stand, you flash back to when you were 19 years old going into a bar in Ontario, but you give your COVID card and say, here's my proof of vaccination. Oh, certainly, they're right this way, Mr. McLeod, and let me show you to your table. And that might be the way it is for the next little while. And I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of sympathy that people who say, oh, I don't, there'll be two lines and there'll be 2 tiers. You're damn right there will be, because we had to deal with all of you anti-maskers and conspiracy nuts, the Adamson barbecue people of the world, who every time that you got your way, COVID numbers went up and we went back into lockdown, and we were kind of left to our own to fend for ourselves. I think it's time for the sane ones to start taking back the public space for the fully vaccinated people.
Yeah, and ultimately, it doesn't. We're not talking about taking away people's rights. You have a right not to take this vaccine. You do not have a right to be free from consequences of not taking this vaccine. The consequences, I'm seeing the consequences already of the British government having decided to basically let Delta kind of run wild. I mean, they had last week they had the Grand Prix at Silverstone. They had something like 150,000 people, nobody wearing masks. Now, you had to either show that you had been vaccinated to get in or take a on-the-spot COVID test. So there was something. But my mother lives in a nursing home, in effect, in England. My sister had just got back in. She's managed to be in to see my mother once. They're closed down again because the cases have risen and now the staff have cases of COVID among them. So thanks very much, guys. I mean, I don't know. Maybe those staff are vaccinated. and they got it anyway because we know it is possible. However, the kind of certainly the very laissez-faire kind of attitude that seems to have spread with regards to COVID there now means that once again, my mother is isolated on her own without being able to have a visitor, and it's not on.
All you have to do is look to the south of the border in the United States. In all 50 states, you're seeing a rise in COVID-19 cases. They are not. Their vaccine has plateaued. It seems literally half the country is willing to get a vaccine. The other half is not. Math might be a little off by like maybe 1 or 2% there, but generally it's half and half. And in the half that's unvaccinated, we're seeing a resurgence in positive case numbers. Surprise, surprise. Here's the thing: like this virus isn't going away. We are nowhere near close to a smallpox eradication of this thing. It is not going away. It is not. It is going to be with us for a very long time, it seems. We need to start thinking of this differently. The premier was quoted by Colin D'Amelio today. He posted this on Twitter. That Premier Ford says it's up to the federal government to implement a vaccination passport. Says he doesn't believe in an Ontario-based vaccine certificate. That's not good enough. We need some real. Go back to we need some more leadership in this province. There should be a card that we can take out and say, I've been vaccinated. I want to go into this bar. I want to go into this gym. I want to go into this sporting event or concert or whatever. I've been vaccinated. I'm clean. I'm good. So we can cut down on the transmission. And that's what it comes down to. And quite frankly, like to shelf it off to, it's the federal government's responsibility. No, it's not. You have the Ministry of Health. You have all of the records of all of us who have been vaccinated. You are completely capable and within your power to say, no, we're going to print up cards or print up some kind of passport document that, 2 weeks after your second dose, you can get mailed out to you. And you just keep in your wallet next to your driver's license. That nobody seems to have a problem with that. But have your driver's license and take a photo ID vaccination card that we can show at the door to our favorite restaurant. And because I like I said before, we've paid the price. We've done the social distancing. We've done the stay indoors, and let's bear the brunt of this for the greater good. Well, it's time for the other foot to happen. We need to start taking back in the those who are ignorant and willfully dismissive of public health and public safety. Fine, but this time you stay indoors. This time you stay in your basement and you get to be cut off from the rest of us. We're gonna go out and live our lives again, whatever it may look like.
That's probably all that needs to be said about that. Other than I certainly think when it comes to things like passports and the federal government needing to do it, it boils down to the provincial government not wanting to pay for it. And we've seen already that this government kind of cheaped out, if you like, on COVID response and had money that has not been spent. Now, I believe that there was a story last week, and I'm just
there's $9 billion that apparently the budget came in $9 billion under the estimated loss. So somehow we found $9 billion that we're paying off to,
right.
Which again, there was a pandemic. Why wasn't that money spent on nursing homes? Why wasn't that money spent on school ventilation? Why wasn't that money spent on a better vaccination program than this free for all that we had? Like this government wants to do everything on the cheap, and when things don't work out, it's let's pass the buck to somebody else who.
Yeah, and if you're come the next year, whenever the next budget comes in, the last budget before a provincial election, we better not be seeing tax cuts, frankly, because that would be just incredibly offensive to see that $9 billion spent on tax cuts to guess who always does best out of tax cuts. It ain't the people who earn the least. instead of keeping people alive. So well, we'll see. Well, the next story on the agenda is Go Train service, and actually, this is a more flattering story for the PCs, and a case of credit where it's due, I think. And that
can't say we're not fair, Roland. You can't say we're not fair.
Even-handed. But no, this is a good thing, and it was announced today by the PC, as it happens, Minister of Transport, Caroline Mulroney. Is she the Minister of Transport? Yes, she is. That the West Harbour GO station in Hamilton will cease being a ghost station, as it has been of late. In fact, pretty much since it was built, because of because of COVID itself didn't help, and then B, because there were just logistical problems dealing with CN and other users of the tracks. But it will now become a proper grown-up full-day commuter service from West Harbour Station into Union Station, which is great news. Amazing. I mean, this was first announced by the previous Liberal government. I think it was a matter of difficulties why it hadn't arrived before. But again, good on the PCs for following through and making sure it actually happened. One of the ways I will actually say that they have been okay, drag those words out of me, is that they have not cut back on Go Transit funding, as far as I am aware. They've kept to the commitments that were made by the previous government, and that is a good thing.
Well, I know that the previous government had intended that the Go service would pretty much go from Toronto all the way down to Niagara, which is, I mean, that's the reality, is that the entire, pretty much from Niagara all the way through to Toronto, is developed. It's a suburban mishmash of spots. So, I mean, St. Catharines is its own city in its own right. It really should deserve connection to a transit hub. Niagara Falls for sure, in the same way. But yeah, I mean, the weird thing was Hamilton always seemed to be this kind of bypass for Go Transit. Like the number of times when I used to take the Go into Toronto in a previous life, everybody on that train, 7 o'clock commuter train in the morning, that train was packed. And I get on at the Burlington station, that train would be packed, and it'd all be full of Hamiltonians who, conveniently enough, all got on at Aldershot, which is technically the last stop on the line. So I mean, this is all in all, it's a good thing. So kudos to them for following through and making sure that Hamilton finally has a decent stop along the route for people to get on and off.
And we should say that I'm just reading the article in the Star right here in front of me as I speak, and Mayor Eisenberger said to Caroline Mulroney, in words that will make certain previous transport ministers be spitting their teeth, that she's done more for Hamilton than any previous Minister of Transportation. I said, well, that's a double-edged sword, because she also cancelled LRT a couple of years ago. Now it's back now, no thanks to her. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, overall, the PCs have kind of had a road to Damascus experience in being converted from kind of almost bloody-mindedly cancelling LRT with a bunch of made-up numbers to bringing it back when it suddenly became in their interest to bring it back.
Well, here's the thing, Roland. Like, this is part of me wonders if this was done because when the federal government got all the credit for bringing back LRT to Hamilton. I mean, that was completely Catherine McKenna's child that she gets the credit for. That's the way it is, and that's what I'll be saying for the rest of my days. I think Caroline Mulroney must have realized, wow, I really screwed the pooch on that one, because everybody was going hat in hand to Catherine McKenna saying, what a great job you're doing. This is good news. So, this is a way to kind of save face. And I think it really does go hand in hand with that LRT announcement a few months ago, because you and I are advocates of public transit. I mean, that's what we need. And we need, regional public transit where people on the lakeshore line can move between cities. Commercial, commerce can travel between cities. Commute times cut down, all that fun stuff. And then you tie it into like an LRT, like you can get around Hamilton a lot more efficiently than having to get in your car and hopefully you catch the traffic light wave to cut across town. Instead, it's a modern public transit infrastructure that we're talking about. And hopefully that, the LRT does go ahead, shovels in the ground, rail lines being put down. And, once you tie in public transit into it, it'll be, I think it'll go a long way to helping to revitalize the downtown Hamilton economic base.
Yeah, I think it will be transformative. And, Hamilton's one of the few places in this province, probably, that certainly one of the few places in the 905 where, you can buy a house a few steps away from where the LRT will be, fingers crossed and touch wood, for a 3-bedroom house for under $500,000. You couldn't buy a boathouse in some of the wealthier parts of Ontario for that much, and this has the potential to change that. And to, obviously gentrification comes with all sorts of problems of its own. However, we want to see an economically vibrant city, and it's not right that really that Hamilton is so out of step with the rest of the province in terms of things like that. So that's good news. Third item on the agenda. So we spoke a couple of months ago, I think, about Melissa Lantsman, and we weren't really talking about Melissa Lantsman, actually. We were talking about an article in the Star that we thought was very strange. It was a puff piece. It was very non-critical. There was no real reason why it had been published.
She was touted as being the savior for the Conservative Party in the 905 region and how she was changing face, yet it talked nothing about what the issues of the 905 region were, let alone what Melissa Lantsman's policies would do to address those issues.
So, and that's fine. And we didn't really comment on her other than to sort of comment on what seemed like a fairly good marketing campaign somewhere along the line. However, she is somewhat of a star candidate, and she's been receiving attention, of the kind that nobody wants to get, which is from some of the journalists, or one of the journalists associated with the Rebel Media organization, or Rebel News, whatever they're called. However, there was an event with Peter Kent, the current MP, and Melissa Lantsman as the nominated candidate, to which a Rebel Media journalist came. She, I believe, left after being asked some questions, one of which certainly is on the record as having been, are you only a candidate because you're a lesbian? And I find it difficult to go beyond that. There were comments, all kinds of really horrible comments on her Twitter feed and on Peter Kent's Twitter feed, saying things along the line of, why are you making such a fuss? And it was only one question out of many. And there are various, you're more familiar with the details than I am about her work with Walmart. However, I mean, that one question, whether it's among 100 others or not,
it doesn't matter. It
just to be offensive. Yeah, I mean, it's like, what's that got to do with anything?
A candidate's sexual orientation in this day and age has absolutely zero to do with their ability to represent a riding. Because, I mean, I think there'll be plenty of grounds to critique Melissa Lantsman on her policies and her professional past that are I think are suitable and justifiable to critique and ask questions about and whatnot. I think she did the right thing by walking away. It was clearly like the question was David Menzies, who was the Rebel Media journalist in question, who asked if Melissa Lantsman was there not because of her merit or her ambition as a young Tory candidate, but because of her sexual orientation. And that is an unacceptable question to ask in this day and age. It's clear that it was a gotcha. It was supposed to be a gotcha moment. It's supposed to be, let's get let's get a rise and we'll get some traction of something or other. I don't know what, but the fact that Melissa ended up calling calling the cops, and the cops was arresting Menzies for harassment. Essentially, they let him go afterwards. But like, that's the thing. I don't think it was a good faith question. It wasn't a good faith interview. There's a million questions. If Melissa Landsman was on here, there'd be a couple questions that I'd ask her about, her conduct or her professional choices and her actions as a lobbyist during the pandemic. Those I think are legitimate. Those I think are questions that people should know the answers to. But to turn her orientation into a bid for likes, or a bid for retweets, or a good YouTube video is despicable.
Well, and I'd love to know. I feel almost that even engaging with the logic of questions like that is beneath us. However, in what conservative riding in the country is being gay helpful to your electoral chances? It isn't. I mean, I'm not saying conservative riding either. Any riding in this province, it's only within recent years that we've even had any politicians willing to come out, because it was such a nail in the coffin of their political careers until recently. And I think it's still something that takes courage. It takes courage to be a woman politician in this country, because you are, and God help you if you're blonde, you're going to just live with a toxic waste dump in your Twitter mentions. I mean,
if you can't ask the candidate serious questions, I mean, that's something that I think you and I would hope that whenever we've had politicians on, I'd want to ask a serious question. I want to know policy choice. I want to know how, if somebody elected them to office, what can somebody expect of their decision in Ottawa, Toronto, or in their city council. That's what I think. If you want to talk to a politician, that's what the question should be about. This was just despicable. I mean, there's no other side to this. The other side was you were hoping to make a buck off of Ms. Landsman's orientation, which is despicable.
Well, and the thing, if you get a chance to interview a politician in this country, and there are very good ones and there are very bad ones out there, we know that, yeah. And that goes for any party. They are a highly variable bunch. If you get the chance to interview one and you want to catch them out, ask them a really tough question on policy detail, because the good ones will hit that ball right out of the park, and the bad ones will whiff every time. That kind of stuff, that kind of confrontational, I can't even call it gotcha stuff, because it's just such a pointless question. I don't even get what good it does anybody. I mean, what good does it do the Rebel even, other than getting them headlines? I don't know. It's like if you want to expose a politician, it's not hard if you can get them in a place where they're actually willing to speak to you. And the really bad politicians tend not to do a lot of interviews for that reason, because their staff make sure they don't. I don't think Melissa Landsman is going to be one of those politicians. I think she probably is pretty smart and capable, certainly capable of getting herself into the news as a candidate, which is not easy. And fair enough. But yeah, this kind of stuff is just do better.
Chances are they won't, though, but we will.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it's like this is maybe why we're never millionaire runners of a media company, but if I will take the opportunity to brain up rather than dumb down every time, really, I will try to. I'm not saying that I always succeed or that we always succeed, but that's the aim, at least.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for this Tuesday's episode of the 905er. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed it. We have. We'll be back on Thursday with what is shaping up to be our final episode for the summer. That's right. We're talking. Roland and I have decided we're hanging up the mics for the month of August and taking a bit of an overdue break because we checked the calendars. We realized we've been doing this for about 1 year straight now. And we're going to take a bit of a break, regroup, breathe, and we'll be back in September, but not before our last episode of the summer this Thursday. So make sure you tune in. That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We'd love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Looking to make the most out of this life and optimize your personal wellness? Then check out the Natural Man Podcast. Join me, host Mike C., as we explore all areas of human wellness, physical, mental, and emotional. Learn strategies to optimize your own well-being and be in the driver's seat of your own health. Remember, your doctor works for you. Learn biohacks, neurohacks, ways to improve sleep, and ways to optimize your body and your mind. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, the Fountain app, and at naturalmanpodcast.com.